So my name is Debojyoti Chakraborty. I am a senior principal scientist at CSIR-IGIB. My lab works on developing new gene therapeutic tools and applying them for correction of diseases, developing therapies that are affordable, accessible to people in this country, and also elsewhere. The focus is on developing solutions that can actually go to people, um, and how to make these more robust and more effective in solving some of the genetic problems. In the past, we have worked on multiple different aspects of stem cell biology, pluripotency, non-coding RNAs, CRISPR diagnostics, and so on. Right now, the major goal is to take the first phase 1 clinical trial for sickle cell anemia CRISPR gene therapy and work with a lot of stakeholders in the industry and the government to not only make such kind of therapies available, but also find out the bottlenecks on what would make it sustainable in the long run. So I have a lab of quite a large number of students at different stages. One of the good things about the lab is that they are, coming from different parts of the country. We even have from time to time people visiting us from outside India as well and spending some time in the lab. They are of all ages and different levels of their background in terms of what education they have completed and what they plan to do over here. PhDs, postdocs, and research assistants and lab managers, etc. We also have a large extended lab, I would say, of collaborators and project scientists and associates who are working with collaborating labs. Since we work with clinicians a lot, this is an important aspect of all our projects. In parallel to the lab, the wet lab work that we do at IGIB, there is also a GMP facility which we have to run in parallel, and that has a dedicated set of manpower who keep this facility going on across the different types of audits that happen, the production, management, etc., etc. These things happen. Then there are also people who help us with liaison with the industries, the different regulatory agencies, and so on. So it's a big team which is working in different aspects of gene therapy and taking these gene therapies to people. And it's a very busy team, so they work very hard, and most importantly, they share similar kind of a passion for making affordable therapies, which I think is the what I look forward to every day when I come to the lab, is to interact with them and to find out what is new and what is exciting. At the same time, trying to refine the processes and focus on the processes more to take it to a successful conclusion someday. That is the hope. To pick a specific topic which is of great interest is difficult because there are several things that are at different stages of development. We of course are very excited about the CRISPR system that we use in the lab and the ability to make very precise changes in the DNA. And I think the same thing is used by different students for different applications. Sometimes it also goes beyond applications to different diseases. And we have got a fantastic set of collaborators in some of them are long-time collaborators like Orko at Bangalore or Indu at earlier at LB Prasad, now at Instep, and all these long-term collaborators, but also short-term different collaborators from the clinical field and all who use these technologies. So they are technologies which are being used for different applications, which are being hopefully going to one day get translated to therapies. So that's something that is always very exciting. I am particularly intrigued by the possibility of what is often called as a holy grail in biology, is to replace genes completely and cure diseases. As we know that, there's a lot of, CRISPR therapies are great for different types of monogenic disorders, which are the first to get cured. You have the base editors, you have the traditional, the CRISPR therapies and so on. But probably the most challenging part is to introduce large genetic fragments into the genome and cure diseases. And most of the time, the people who reach out to me to be a lot are parents of kids of rare genetic disorders. And in such cases, these mutations are diverse. Sometimes they are deletions, and big chunks of the genome has to be altered. And unfortunately, there are no known highly robust technologies which can do that in a safe manner. A major focus of the work that we are currently doing is try to see if we can develop a solution there. And this really is the most exciting thing, I think, at this point of time. Of course, there is the phase 1 trial for sickle cell anemia and the other ones that are going on, the industrial collaborations, which are, something that is, I keep on looking forward to. But in reality, this is something that I'm really excited about, is the possibility of using some of our CRISPR systems to make large changes in the genome. And we're making some very steady progress in that, which I think is going to keep me occupied for the next few months or years at this point. Yeah, this is a very difficult question to answer, because your inspirations oftentimes, at least I find that inspirations can be very dynamically changing, and you can have different inspirations at different times or different stages of your career. So during my growing up days, it was the teachers, my parents, both of them come from a non-scientific background. They are engineers. And my sister, who is also an engineer, these people later on, other people, schools, in the school, in the college, your professors were, who I mean, all these people who essentially shape you in some way or the other. And then if you, for a person like me who likes to look at, how to pick up the most positive virtues that you meet around, I think all of them in some way has shaped. Later on, after once I got married, then you also try to see the same thing in your partner as well. And I would say even my son influences me or inspires me in some ways as well. But aside that, if I had to pick up some major influences who have really shaped the way that I think about science, society, and most importantly music, because that's a very important part of my life. I cannot look at science and music separately. Actually, it is almost intertwined. So I have two major inspirations, right from childhood till now. I would deeply resonate with the virtuosity and the concept of music as propounded by somebody called Pandit Nikhil Banerjee. He was an Indian classical musician who unfortunately left very early. Interestingly, I have never heard him play live. I have heard all the major masters of Indian classical music live, but unfortunately, Nikhil Banerjee passed away in 1986. So I could not hear him live. But we grew up hearing his music, and then I connected with him in a very very deep way through his ragas, through his creativity on through his technical mastery. Now, why I'm saying this is because each of this has very, very strong, how to say, parallels in the world of science as well. When when you express a raga, you are being very creative, and you're looking for answers in the most let's say unknown or the unexplored regions of a musical track. So for example, raga actually means what that which colors the mind, and the same colors don't color everybody's minds, but as an artist or as a performer, you have to keep that in mind. So similarly, the same type of reasoning or the same type of experimentation doesn't lead to the same the right answers every time in a scientific background. So I see a lot of parallels there between music, and because of Nikhil Banerjee's way of having a very deep, very serious approach to that, it also gave me that kind of motivation to approach music and science with that level of seriousness. You cannot simply do it because it's just another let's say hobby or a pastime. So that's why I think Nikhil Banerjee is not just a musical inspiration but also an inspiration in life, because that's how he approached music. And you can at least for me, when I hear him, I keep on seeing that or hearing that in his expressions. So that's, of course, Nikhil Banerjee, whom I have never met, but is a very important part of my life. I go back to Nikhil Banerjee when I'm ecstatic. I go back to Nikhil Banerjee when I need to just sit down and drown my, let's say, frustrations. So he's there all the time, at the back of my mind. Um, in the field of science, I have been extremely fortunate to meet some, fantastic people. I have to say that, I consider myself very lucky, as in 2007, as a, almost as a bachelor student, I actually managed to go to Lindau and meet close to 20 Nobel laureates. I think to have that kind of an experience, that level, is quite overwhelming. And when you meet so many Nobel laureates, you sit with them, you take them out to restaurants. We have a beautiful mechanism of how to engage with these people, and you stay there for a week or so. And then following that, a lot of different great scientists in India as well as abroad. So all these people, have shaped in me. I mean, I have to say that, I after I came to IGIB, I have been working very closely with Dr. Shobhik Maiti, who has been a real, how to say, friend, philosopher, guide, a kind of a guide and a mentor. But more important, he is also a source of inspiration to do a lot of different things and do it in a way which is, to stick to the very basic, have a right attitude in terms of how to solve problems. So it's fun working with him. But the inspiration that I want to tell today is someone whom I met in 2015. So this was a very interesting year, and I had just I was finishing up my PhD's postdoc studies, and then I was about to join IGIB. I joined in 2016. So this was in the month of October, September, October, if I remember. And I was there in a conference in Heidelberg, in EMBL Heidelberg, and we had a how to say like, so there were talks and from all the speakers, and we knew what was the agenda. I also had a chance to present. And then after lunch, the organizers said that, we are going to have a very special guest today who is going to give a talk on gene editing. And gene editing was just starting off in those days. It was far away from the Nobel Prize and the patent and all the therapies. So this was 2015. And the speaker is going to be, there are going to be two speakers, Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier. So, there was a hush around the whole hall. And then I think within a half an hour or 45 minutes, we had literally the entire Heidelberg scientific community basically flooding this double helix building in EMVL. And there was literally no space for anybody to sit. So they were sitting on the stairs. They were sitting on every possible place that was there. And then I heard Jennifer Doudna for, I think, 45 minutes or something, and I've never heard a better scientific talk than that. Just the understanding, the passion, the whole energy about her was so stupendous. It was not like a talk. It was almost like she was an orchestra conductor taking us through myriad of emotions. And this was way before we really knew the power of CRISPR. She had already seen it. She had seen it in her eyes. She was all, she knew what it could do, which eventually it did. But just hearing her talk, and that point of time, when I knew that I was coming to India to open a lab, I had a lot of different ideas what I'm going to work on and so on. But I think she drastically changed a lot of different things. She told, in my mind, I thought that, if this is what CRISPR or gene editing can do, then there's a lot that can actually be done, both in terms of, the impact that it can cause. And strangely enough, after the talk was over, and there was a great opportunity to spend, I think, around almost 20-25 minutes with her, going through the work that I was doing and the plans that I had. She came across as a person who was, almost had that childlike enthusiasm, even with at that level, to really discuss new ideas, offer new solutions. And literally, that was a turning point for me, because till then I had completely different ideas about what I want to work on. And to even look at, what a scientist entails. But that point of time when I met her, it told me that there is so much more in science than just to do research, because science is a way by which you can actually make very tangible connections with society, connections with people, and most importantly, as a musician, where emotions are everything. This is like I told you that raga means that which colors the mind. And sometimes science, as scientists, people are taught that, oh, you have to be very objective, you have to be having emotions outside, you have to be very objective in trying to solve problems. But this combination of Nikhil Banerjee and Jennifer Doudna's passion for making tangible changes in people's life, I think that was the best possible combination that could happen for me. So I purposefully decided to take up projects where I could connect to people. And this really is the most rewarding and fulfilling part of my scientific journey, is that what I do, I am doing with a continuous connect with people, whether they are patients, whether they are legislators, whether they are regulators, whether they are clinicians, and most importantly, whether they are the great students that I have. So there is always that connect that is happening. I'm not solving problems in isolation and writing papers, but really try to see if the work that I do can actually reach people. So these are my major influences, and probably they are such major influences because they resonate with the with my nature of trying to find a balance in the objective as well as the more emotional quotient that is associated with life in general. So yeah, I think that's my main influences.